Well, microphone's closed.
Check your laptop.
Good evening. The City of Riverbank City Council LRA Board meetings are now in session. Today is Tuesday, July 26, 2022. The time is 6 p.m. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings that our local community has. I pray for those who are in the office that govern this community and county, and that they make wise and godly decisions, which are always in the best interest of the community. I am glad that we have the freedom to speak up and vote for those who oppose our set of values. Even if I differentiate from these leaders, I pray for them to be blessed by you, God, and also those who are in law enforcement. Please protect them in their line of duty so that they might protect those of us who have placed our trust in them. God, please bless those men and women in city government, the mayor's office, the commissioner, and all elected officials, and celebrate those who put themselves in harm's way, like law enforcement, firefighters, and the EMS workers. I am so thankful we have all of those, and in Jesus' precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. This meeting will be held in accordance with the California Government Code Section 59453, Subdivision Echo of the Ralph M. Brown Act, California Government Code 54950 et sec, the Federal Americans with Disabilities. While this meeting will be physically open to the public, given the state of emergency regarding the threat of COVID-19, members of the public may also participate and comment via Zoom virtual platform. Refer to the last page of the agenda for participation information. Roll call.
Councilmember Uribe?
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Here.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez?
Here.
Vice Mayor Campbell?
Here.
Mayor O'Brien?
Here. Conflict of interest. Any council, authority member, or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Hearing none, we're going to proceed to presentations, item 7.1, Environmental Justice Project.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back here today. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back here today. As some of you know, my name is Zoe Jonick. I'm the Civic Spark Fellow working with the city, and I gave a presentation to the City Council back in February. I'm back here today as my year-long service term is coming to an end in August, and I'm now able to share some of the results of my community engagement and environmental justice project. So I will start. One moment.
But while we're trying to get the slides up, go ahead and start talking
Yeah.
through, and then we'll refer to the slides, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start my presentation, I'll see it in a second, with an overview of what I'm going to be discussing today. So first, I'm going to start off with some introductions and a bit of a refresher on what this project is about. Then I'll go into some information about the project process itself, how it was run, and then into the findings and the subsequent recommendations. Finally, I'll talk about some of the next steps that can be taken. So to reintroduce myself, my name is Zoe Jonick. I'm the Civic Spark Fellow, which means that through my program, which is Civic Spark, it's an AmeriCorps program, I've been working with the City of Riverbank's Planning Department on building capacity for environmental and equity issues. There we go. Great. Thank you. This is me. Environmental and equity issues over the course of a year-long service term, which is currently wrapping up and ends in August. I've also been working with the Sustainable Stanislaus Communities Coalition on a similar project in Modesto. The city secured this fellowship with the support of the California Health Collaborative, which is a public health nonprofit that is especially dedicated to addressing issues around nicotine and tobacco. So quickly, I'm going to run through some of the background and goals for this community engagement process, both as a refresher for those who saw my original presentation and as an introduction for those who didn't. So
Just a
this,
second. We're in a process of upgrading. We found out that we're not doing very well in electronics.
So this project is all about doing community engagement around the creation of a new environmental justice element for Riverbank's general plan. A general plan is a very long document that contains the values, standards, and policies looking ahead to the city's next 20 to 30 years and is used as a roadmap for most land use and planning decisions. In this way, it can have a huge impact on the city. Under California law, SB 1000, cities with at least one disadvantaged community, which is any community that faces greater environmental impacts, worse conditions, and or lower incomes, must create an environmental justice chapter for their general plan. Also, this must be made with significant amounts of community involvement. So these are the 7 issue areas that must be addressed in the EJ chapter. As you can see, they span across a wide range of issues, all of which have significant effects on your health and quality of life. In this way, these are all environmental justice issues, as environmental justice means that everyone must have the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards, as well as equal access to the decision-making process in order to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work. Understanding this, my job was to initiate the process of creating this environmental justice element for the general plan by connecting to the community and getting them involved in the conversation. This looks like providing information about what's been going on, as well as getting direct feedback from residents about the issues and realities they face. We were also looking for suggestions and solutions from the community for the problems they see in their everyday lives, so they can shape the element from the very beginning. So this is the process that I took. First, we started with research, then identified a few key stakeholders in the city who I got to interview to get a better understanding of the community and the techniques that would work best to conduct community engagement. From there, I created a community engagement plan, then went about creating the informational materials in order to have something easy to share and understand about environmental justice and what it means to Riverbank residents. You may have seen it. It looks like this. At the bottom of this one-page flyer, it's a lot of text on the screen, but at the bottom of this one-page flyer, you can see the link to the survey, which was the next step in the process. We developed the survey alongside the one-pager in both Spanish and English, and once we had it completed, I started promoting it in a bunch of different ways. Then the analysis of the survey responses, and finally the resulting recommendations. So going into this, we really wanted to get as many Riverbank residents as possible to take this survey. We were lucky enough to have support from the California Health Collaborative and were able to offer a $10 Starbucks gift card to those who took it. Incentivizing surveys in any kind of way for anything where residents take time to share their thoughts and ideas in this capacity means that more people are likely to take it and that they are properly thanked for their efforts and time. The online presence of the Riverbank community is really great. So I joined 3 different Facebook Riverbank groups and shared the survey and info sheet there. I also shared both of those forms online with a couple community groups. And then for in-person outreach, some of you may have seen me. I was out there tabling at the Riverbank Market every Tuesday in May. That was a really great experience. I was able to chat with a bunch of different people about this project and a bunch of other things. I also had a chance to talk to a couple of classes at Riverbank High briefly about this project and the potential to get involved. Finally, I distributed some physical flyers to groups such as Casa del Rio and St. Francis of Rome. On top of these methods, we were also able to get a short article plugging the survey in the newsletter that goes out in residents' utility bills. So now we can take a look at some of the results. So I'll start off by saying that this is going to be a very broad strokes overview, as we were able to get a total of 88 responses, which is great, but also means that there's a lot of data to try and put into a relatively short presentation. So the full analysis will be included in the report that I provide in the last week or so of my term. So the first content question asked residents to select up to 4 of the 7 issues you saw earlier under the requirements slide that are most important to address in Riverbank. With the question framed like this, it means that choosing one over the other doesn't necessarily mean that the unchosen issue isn't a problem, but instead that the one that they did choose probably takes a greater priority in their life. In that way, we can draw some conclusions from the frequency of the answers. So for example, and also I'll preface, I'm not a statistician, I am not a professional when it comes to surveys and statistics, so this take it as you will. But for example, 64.29% of respondents had access to places to walk, play, and exercise, which can mean clean, green, open spaces, bike paths, sidewalks, pedestrian safety, as one of their top 4 most important issues. Better air quality and lowering pollution were also a top 4 issue for over half of the respondents, as well as housing affordability and safety. Access to public services and facilities came in with 47.62% of respondents. Interestingly, we did collect information about the general area of the city that people live in, and both Northeast and Northwest Riverbank, which had the most similar number of respondents, had very different percentages on a couple of these issues. So in Northeast Riverbank, 73% of respondents chose air quality and pollution as one of their top issues, and in Northwest Riverbank, that number was only 28%. Whereas, and additionally, 58% of the Northeast side residents chose access to healthy food options as an important issue, whereas only 14% of the Northwest residents did. This is an example of how different neighborhoods might be impacted in different ways by accessibility and environmental issues. So these issues you see here are just some of the responses, but these are ones that were brought up extremely frequently. Many talked about the need for affordable and healthy food options that were closer. Many talked about the need for improved public transportation, including better bus stops, covers, more routes, better publicity of timing, and especially more options for seniors. These next 2 kind of go hand in hand: improved outdoor public spaces and improved safety and traffic measures. Improving outdoor public measures, including walking paths, parks, streets, sidewalks, that was the most frequent issue I saw in the responses. People are also very concerned, like I said, with pedestrian bike safety, especially in issues where the speed limit is high or there's no sidewalks or crosswalks. And when it feels dangerous to walk in a city, it means that the city is less accessible, especially for people who don't have access to a car, whether that be because they're a senior or they're a student or they don't have a driver's license for whatever reason. It means that they're not able to get where they need to go often. People also frequently mention poor air quality from various sources and concern over pesticide use. There's also demonstrated need for more access to the public process. Many people indicated their desire to participate, but had a lack of knowledge or ability to attend the meetings that exist. So building off of these responses, we've got some great suggestions of things people want to see more of. So things like community events, like the events at parks and the downtown market are very well liked and effective for strengthening these community relationships. A few suggested having frequent surveys online or like an online forum for people to share their thoughts and experiences directly with the city, to have their voice heard. Along with that, online outreach is also very important to the people that responded. People want to see city meetings publicized on social media and other places where residents can easily hear about it and attend. I know that these meetings are hybrid, they're also on Zoom, but a lot of people are not aware of that. A lot of people said, I want these meetings to be on Zoom, I want to be able to attend from my house. I think they just aren't aware that they can do that, so there's a lack of knowledge there. And they want to make sure there's plenty of opportunities to attend these meetings remotely. There's also an expressed desire to making sure the meetings are interpreted in Spanish for those who don't speak English as a first language. Without it, you're basically ensuring that the only people who can actively participate in these meetings are people who have strong English skills, which excludes a sizable amount of Riverbank residents. As I mentioned, people really want to see their outdoor spaces invested in. They want more trees planted, more and better walking paths and parks. There's a ton of studied benefits investing in greening a city, including lowering temperatures, improving air quality, improving storm drainage, but also investing in outdoor public spaces and making them within walking distance of everywhere in the city means that the community is more likely to go out and spend time with their families and neighbors, doing physical activities and building community. It's also a space where people can gather and discuss what's going on and kind of have those conversations and get more involved. I've included here a few quotations from surveys that I thought captured the sentiments of a lot of the respondents. So here we have addressing the quality of life issues are most important. I feel having a great recreational options, great infrastructure, and healthy eateries would benefit our community as a whole. I feel Riverbank could do better in this department. We have air quality in this area is bad. With all the new development, traffic issues will be more paramount. There is not enough affordable housing in this area, and green spaces and safe bicycling needs to be prioritized. And then we have all these issues are important, a clean city with parks for kids to play, affordable housing is most important. We want our family to live a healthy and active lifestyle, have a voice in the community. And then we have the health of my children is my #1 priority. I think we can and should be doing more to protect all children by addressing environmental injustices. These are just some of the quotes, but these are common themes. People in Riverbank really care and about making sure that their city is clean, safe, and affordable as possible, especially for the health and safety of their families. Some respondents talked about their children's asthma or expressed concern about their families being exposed to pesticides or pollution from traffic. So what are the key takeaways from the survey? One of the most important things to take from it is that Riverbank residents are ready and interested in getting involved. I mean, you can see that here tonight. There's a lot of people here. By making the ways to participate more accessible through timing, language, location, et cetera, people who may have always been interested in participating but haven't been able to will step up. One of the other key takeaways is that residents want and need to make it more, to see more accessibility when it comes to healthy food and outdoor spaces. As I mentioned earlier, making the city more green and walkable would improve the health and safety of the community, providing more opportunities for community engagement and strengthening, and increase the environmental resiliency of the city. I'm sure I don't have to explain to you all what some of the dangers are of climate change as we are seeing them right now with this extremely hot weather that is going on for a while. Without action on a local and global scale, temperatures are going to continue to rise every summer, and there simply needs to be a backup plan for when there's power failure, power outages, grid failure, and people don't have access to air conditioning and cooling because it's more of a when than a if. So trees are one way to significantly build resiliency in hot places. They can actually drop temperatures as much as 9 degrees when planted strategically. There are other solutions that should be explored, such as solar power, which can help power grid reliance. So where do we go from here? Beyond reviewing the transition report and recommendations I will be providing, in a couple weeks. There's a few new steps I would recommend, there's a few next steps I would recommend being taken as soon as the capacity allows. One is creating and publishing an in-depth existing conditions survey for the city. So my survey was very qualitative. It's people talking about their experiences, but it's not, you can't get very strict numbers from it, right? So a more quantitative survey, like the one that Tulare County published, you can look it up, and I'll link it in my report. They have a great example of a survey that collects demographic information and very much quantifies the amount of need in different areas and the impacts of these different issues. If possible, I would also recommend incentivizing it and publicizing it so that there are as many responses as possible. The more responses you get, the more accurate your results will be. I'll also be providing the contacts of people who express interest in being a part of the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee for the city for this EJA development process. They'd be able to steer it and get further action going. It would be great if information about these things and other environmental justice processes that are taken are posted to the city's website so that anyone interested can get that information easily. And finally, I'm going to recommend again that any of those who will be making decisions about these issues read the SEHA SB 1000 toolkit as at the very least, Chapter 5, which is really informative about the different issues and those measures that can be taken. For examples from other jurisdictions, there's Chapter 6, and in Chapter 7, there's potential funding sources for this work, and that can help improve capacity. So that was a lot of information to throw at y'all, but I wanted to thank you for having me back to report on this project. It was an incredibly interesting, exciting project. I'm very excited to see where it goes from here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone will have.
From the council, any questions or comments? Please.
Sure. So I'll make a couple comments. It's always been a pleasure working with you for a year. Your presence is very much appreciated. The presence online and in person. I also ran into you at the farmers market, so appreciate you putting yourself out there for the residents and the survey responses. A lot of it kind of aligned with our Parks Master Plan, right? The #1 priorities was like the walkable space, investing in trails, and investing in the parks, and that's exactly what we as a council are trying to achieve here. For any businesses out there that are trying to invest in EV charging stations, the Air Board has grants, so that there's money out there. If you're trying to do this, there's free money out there to get. Is that mine? Let's see, where was I? And then just kind of brainstorming here. Don't quote me on it, but you know, something as easy as like planting a tree. So maybe, and again, don't quote me. Just kind of brainstorming. Maybe doing like 100 trees in 100 days, where the city makes available some trees for residents to come and maybe plant in their front, especially on the northeast side of the city, like you stated. But yeah, I appreciate the whole presentation and everything you've done for the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I have a couple. Although environmental justice is very near and dear to our hearts up here, there's a lot of agencies which we have to fight to be able to achieve some of the environmental justice. Region 9 is very pleased with the way that they have small advances in it. But when it comes to doing a major goal, such as eliminating pollution along 108 and getting on the North County corridor, they're now thwarting the North County corridor, saying it's not a bike and ped lane, therefore it's not needed because you have 108. 108 is congested, heavily polluted. So that is in itself a little disconcerting. We have the environmental justice that we're going to put throughout the updated general plan and also into its own chapter. But then when we try getting a carbon capture, there is still some trepidation from some of the powers that are up there. What if you put carbon into a saltwater basin that we have under the city, 2 miles under? What is that going to do? Well, it's going to get the carbon out. If you're a believer that carbon is the problem, then get the carbon out. Or do you believe that every 440,000 years we come to this point in history where it's repeated? So, you know, you have a lot. But if you want to capture the carbon, then make it available. We have the technology. make it accessible for us to start it immediately, or, you know, you're just having smoke and mirrors. A lot of the issues about the pollution is the burning of ag waste or just shipping it now, and where we will have a process of converting that into sustainable aviation fuel. But again, we're kind of slowed down in our process. So yes, we want to do the environmental justice, but I want to do it on my terms. I want to do it quickly. But that's not the way we do things around the government. It has to be studied. It has to be thought about, and then you have somebody leave, and then it has to start the process all over again. So if you can help us with that portion of it, we truly appreciate it. We also have microgrids that this council has had the foresight to move forward, which was exactly what you say, alleviate the strain on our grid, and our microgrids will be able to put the city community center off the grid as a cooling station or an emergency shelter in the case that it's needed, like we saw a couple of years ago in Jamestown. So there's a lot of things that we're doing that we also need help in getting the big boys to come to the table with their pockets. Okay, that's my 2 cents worth. And keep going, and I'd be interested where we move from here and how that's incorporated in our general plan technical review.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a bunch of interesting issues, carbon sequestration, however you say that word, and these, carbon capture, all these different issues. Microgrids are great. These things that build out like local resiliency. I think a lot of people see climate change as this huge issue, like what can we do on this small scale, but actually it can be more impactful if these smaller places have things like that and build, like what you're saying, microgrids, resiliency hubs. I think that's another name for, having like the community center off grid and having places where people can walk to if their power fails and it's like deathly hot outside. Things like that, as these effects of climate change are here. It's not 20 years out, it's not 15 years out, they are here, and these steps need to be taken, and there are real things that can be done. And like Councilmember Uribe was saying, some solutions are really as simple as, it's just a part of the problem, but planting trees really would make a difference. They drop the temperature significantly and they help clean the air. So as well as making it more beautiful and nice to live in and improving mental health and things like that. So yes, there's a lot of really great solutions and issues around these issues that can be taken at this level.
All right, Zoe, thank you. Are we going to still see you around, or are you now leave for another city?
No, so this service term is only a year long. My last day is August 13th, and then I will be transitioning to another position. There will not be a fellow following me, at least not immediately, but the Sustainable Stanislaus Communities Coalition has people that live in the city that are very much willing to help continue this work. I've been working with them this whole year. So the ball will not be dropped.
Thank you very much, and good luck on your future endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to public comment. For those that are in the Zoom, please refer to the last page of this agenda for public comments procedure via Zoom. At this time, members of the public may comment on items not appearing on the agenda and with the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes and no more than 9 minutes per topic, and that time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during public comment period cannot be discussed. What I mean by a maximum 9 minutes per topic is that I know there's some people wanting to talk about tiny homes. However, you want to break that up after 9 minutes, the conversation stops. The same thing for Riverwalk or any other items not on the agenda. So, sir?
That's a new restriction. It used to be 5 minutes. My name is Bernard Agers. I live at 7730 McHenry Avenue. Typically, my wife is here with me. Her name is Jamie Agers. She's on travel now. I oppose Riverwalk for many reasons. The number one reason is all the negative impacts it will have on the community. This young lady was just granted 28 minutes of nonstop comment on environmental justice. I would like to see a 30-minute presentation on environmental injustice, such as developing prime farmland, 1,000+ acres, and planting 3,300 homes on that. That would be an environmental injustice. I would love to hear a 30-minute presentation on that flip side of what she just said. Okay, the other issue is 3 weeks ago, I've lived at my home 35 years, all of a sudden, no water. Guess what? The well pump went bad. Well, anyway, long story short, the water table is dropping. I live up on the river bluff on East McHenry Avenue. For 35 years, it's been at 43 feet. Suddenly, in 2 years, it's dropped 4 feet. What's going to happen when Riverwalk goes in and they're pulling 2 million gallons of water per fill in the blank, day, week, whatever? What's going to happen when their water supply ends? Think about that if that development is allowed to go forward. The third point I'd like to bring up is we have been in constant contact, and I say me and my neighbors, with trying to get information on how the DER is going and so on and so forth. Zip. We get zip. Nothing until an email a day or two ago that it's on its third iteration. Why is there no transparency around here? I think I know why. I'm not going to express it, but I have my beliefs. Anyway, I think it's a project that's being put into the wrong place. It's a potential floodplain many years if we ever get out of this drought. It's a future environmental disaster, and that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else on the Riverwalk?
Good evening. My name is Dan Whetstone. I live at 7824 McHenry Avenue. My house is on the bluff overlooking the river bottom where the Riverwalk project's proposed. All I'm going to say tonight is that this, 33 or 3,500 homes is just going to overwhelm the infrastructure, roads, sewer, water, police, whatever. It's going to overwhelm the environment. Again, the river, the water recharge, the wildlife. It's just too big a project to put in that area. So please, we have heard the EIR is out now, or second draft or whatever. So please look at that project closely when it comes to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other on the Riverwalk? Anyone from Zoom wanting to talk?
Hello, my name is Karen Conrado. I live on Hogue Road. Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and City Council members. I'm here to let you know that I oppose the Riverwalk Housing Development proposal. And you know the reasons, they're valid. They stay pretty much the same. It's destroying fertile, productive land. It would have homes on a floodplain. There's infrastructure issues, traffic, water, sewer, among many others. There's also the issue of water recharge. Again, the most valuable recharge areas in the county and the state. Aquifer depletion, wildlife destruction, riparian habitat destruction. The list goes on. please consider very carefully the impact of this project on our quality of life. I don't want to live in a San Jose or an LA where, you know, fertile land has become nothing but houses packed one against the other. Thank you very much.
Any other, the Riverwalk?
We have somebody on Zoom, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
This is not on Riverwalk. Mayor O'Brien, this is Annabelle Gammon. I did want to comment on the presentation on the environmental justice. So if I may I comment on that?
We're talking, if you want to use that for your Riverwalk, go ahead.
It's not Riverwalk. I am trying to make a comment on the presentation of the environmental justice. You did not ask for any comments, and I don't know if it's out of order for me to make a comment.
Please continue.
Okay. I have always been interested in SB 1000. As you know, I came to the council and also to the planning commission talking about SB 1000 to be in the general plan. I was fortunate to be able to speak to Ms. Zonick by phone and also emailed her. Never got to touch base with her. And I just have also spoken to Donna Kenny that I would like very much to be part of the advisory committee on this subject. I'm very interested. I did a survey. I haven't had any feedback. And as to your 2 cents comments, Mayor O'Brien, there are many things we can do without having to talk to the big bucks people. Number one, I think if we start thinking about decreasing, first of all, the bad things we do to make the environment worse, like development, putting asphalt, and having no water, a chance to have to sink down. We are destroying our aquifers. We are putting many roads. So I would like to make sure that I would be part of the advisory committee of the environmental justice in the general plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to move on to tiny homes. I know that there's individuals who want to speak about tiny homes. Come on up.
Hello, neighbors. Hello, City Council. I live on, okay, Kevin, there you go. That's all I got. No, the tiny home things. I think that's awesome, I suppose. I live on Zillman Court, right off of Morrell, which is right off of Oakdale. When you make that left from Oakdale to Morrell, there's a beautiful 3,000 square foot home that has been converted to a church. We've been good neighbors to these folks. There's not very many of them. On Sunday, you'll see 4 or 5 cars. That's awesome. The surveyors were busy surveying. I wanted to ask what was going on. It's been proposed they put tiny homes, unwed, battered mothers. I think we need to help them, but not in front of my house. I have retired there 3 years ago. I'm a retired trucker. My neighbor's a trucker. The other one's a mechanic. The other one works for the city of Modesto. We're regular folk. The homes are 1,600 to 1,800 square feet. We take pride in our homes. We love our homes. We love our neighborhood. I love Riverbank. I've chosen to retire here. Had I known about this, what are the chances you think I'd have bought that house? Or my neighbors? There'd be zero, because they'll be unsaleable when you put these little pygmy homes right in front. That's not right. We live in a neighborhood with kids. I have a bunch of grandkids that come by, and our street is clean, and it's quiet. The people that are on it are the people that officer back, dark how long it was gonna feel the same way. That's all I got. Except when it is on the agenda, do I just check weekly to find out when this is what we're talking about? When this topic is,
If you will, do us a favor, give us your email address. We'll let you know in advance when this topic comes forward.
will do.
Okay? That's how we do things around here, even though we're closed off to the world, they say. Just give us what you want and we'll make sure that you're in attendance. Or you can, watch our website, but I prefer going directly to you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other on tiny homes? All right, any other public comment?
Good evening. My name's Cliff Nagel. I live on Candlewood Circle in, I guess you'd call it Northwest Riverbank. And from what I hear, we're going to have a couple thousand large homes to affect our property values. And that's not what I'm about to say. You've talked about things that people are obviously deeply concerned about. And as these subjects are brought, various issues are thought about: water, traffic, air pollution, etc. I would suggest that when any issue comes before the council, before you get bogged down in what are the bad things with this idea, try to figure out what good is this going to do for the community. Somebody can come up with a great idea, might be a great idea in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but what is it going to do for me? What's it going to do for these people? If it's not going to improve their lives, then why bother with it? Riverbank, it seems to me that so many city councils have the idea that if you don't grow, you're doomed. And that's a bunch of baloney. There are thousands of cities and towns in the United States and around the world that have had the same populations for hundreds of years. They're not doomed. But I just pray that you will think about what good is this going to do for the people in our community. And if it isn't going to do any good, why bother with it? And then as a smart-ass comment to this gentleman, Mr. Uribe, you made a comment about charging stations and mentioned you had a grant for some free money. You tell me where there's free money. If it's coming from the federal government, it's coming out of this pocket of mine. If it's coming from the state government, it's coming out of this pocket. And if it's coming out of the city government, it's coming out of this pocket. And anymore, it's coming out of the veins. But there's no such thing as free money. Thank you.
Sir, I'd like you to take a look. Next time we have a strategic planning session, we take all of this into consideration as we grow. So next strategic planning, we will put it out again. And I'd like to have public participation. We get none. But it is something that as we move forward and we grow, that we take each topic and how can we satisfy not only the residents here, the state mandates and the federal mandates. People are talking about recharge, but when you're micro watering, there's no recharge. And if you're talking about some of the other items about, am I going to allow people without homes, keep them without homes, and keep our population the same, you know, that it may be a palatable thing for other cities, but we have to look at where we need to support all of our populations, those with homes, those who are losing their homes. Do we allow them just to lose their homes? You know, there's a lot to consider. I'm sorry, I'm not picking on you, sir. I'm just telling you how we think of things at our strategic planning. And please join us or join the council and get your voice heard in all of our strategic planning. Are there any other public comments?
Gerald Schneider, I'm on Candlewood Circle as well. And I just had a question. In some of the documents I read that there would be tiny homes and transient housing. Can you explain the difference between tiny homes and transient housing and how many city employees it's going to take to manage that group?
All right, first off, tiny homes are an independent project for transient housing. And what we have is a program for those who are homeless, who have just either lost their home, lost their job, or lost their ability to pay rent. Rent is now for apartments around $1,600. You look at minimum wage, they're paying 50% of their income into housing, and they can't afford it. So some of the housing that we have through the Cambridge Academy is taking people who are on the street, getting them situated where they can have some type of transient housing, not transient. It's more of transitional housing, I think that's the word that you're using, from homeless to where they'll be permanently housed. So there are some transitional housing that we're trying to acquire, put them in temporary as they get situated. They go to school, they get trained, they get clean, they get all the facilities that they can, and it's through the Cambridge Academy. It's not through the city of Riverbank supporting it, but we don't use our staff for it. We use the Cambridge Academy.
And it's all their funds. There's no city funds involved in this project.
No, it's not city funds. We acquired a $2 million grant from Senator Eggman that is supporting this initiative and several other initiatives that in the city.
So what I understood you to say was that transient and tiny homes.
No, transitional housing and tiny homes may house transitional housing.
All right.
But that's different. Now, for the Covenant Church, I believe it is, that has proposed for tiny homes, well, we have to take a look at when they come on up before us. But tiny homes may be used in other portions of the city for transitional housing. But once the need for transitional housing ends, those homes will go away. Although we're planning on a tiny home, 700 to 1,000 square feet homes community, which will be like starter homes for a lot of the families. Housing right now is untenable for 50% of the population. Do we let them just go wander around? I don't believe that we do that. But if I am wrong, there's an election coming up, and please, let's have a real debate about it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Jerry. Further. Thank you. Let's move on. We're going to move on to the consent calendar. By the way, I'm not upset with anybody. I just talk firmly. Item 1, waive readings. Item 2, approval of the 28th June 2022 City Council Local Redevelopment Authority Board minutes. Item 9.3, adopt a resolution authorizing the city to implement teleconference public meetings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, allowing the city to continue a hybrid virtual meeting environment. Item 9.4, adopt a resolution to award bid for the Parks Landscaping Maintenance contract to Grover Landscaping, Inc. Item 9.5, adopt a resolution authorizing the amendment of the City of Riverbank compensation plan to reflect the new salary range for the human resources analyst position from range 128 to range 146. Item 9.6, adopt a resolution authorizing additional appropriations of $16,675 from the Community Facility District CFD to purchase new Kubota compact truck loader to maintain storm drain basins. Item 9.7, adopt a resolution awarding a contract for executive recruitment services of Mosaic Public Partners for the recruitment of an assistant city manager and public works director, authorizing the city manager to finalize and execute the contract and allocate $50,000 from the general fund reserve. Is there anyone wishing to comment on the consent item? Is there anyone from the council wishing to pull or comment on the consent item? Do I have a recommendation?
And I'll second it.
A motion to approve and a second on the consent calendar. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe?
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campbell?
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Public hearing, item 10.1, General Plan Amendment 01-02021 and Rezone 02-021, Department File Number 21-0024, Pocket Avenue Senior Apartment Complex, 3318 Pocket Avenue, APN 075-090-063. The applicant requests the general plan amendment to modify the existing low-density residential LDR land use designation to high-density resolution HDR and to rezone the existing single-family residential R1 site to planned development PD for a proposed 40-unit senior apartment complex on 2.01 acres.
Good evening, Council. Donna Kenny, Planning and Building Manager for the City of Riverbank. The project consists of a general plan amendment that would change the designation to low-density residential to high-density residential, and a rezone, which would be from single-family residential to planned development. So the increase of density is, and the rezone to the site is to accommodate the proposed 40-unit senior apartment complex. As you may recall, whenever we do planned development rezoning, they're required to provide amenities to the community, to the future residents. So this project would include a walking path for the residents, a shaded social area with perhaps grills, and a community garden. Here's an aerial view of the site. So when this project originally came to Planning Commission, the traffic study was underway and not yet complete. And since that time, we have received a copy of the traffic analysis through K.D. Anderson Transportation Planners. So the submitted traffic analysis for this site states that single-family residences are the highest trip generators, where standard apartments are somewhat lower, and senior housing is the lowest. In fact, the trips generated by single-family residential are 3 times the trips as senior housing. That's 9.43 a day versus 3.24 per day. Besides that, the senior trip generation is estimated at 65 round trips per day. But only 8 trips, 3 incoming and 5 outgoing, are estimated during the morning weekday peak hours of travel, and only 10 trips, 5 in and 5 out, are estimated to occur during the evening peak traffic hours. So we have a conceptual site plan. It's not under review for adoption. It's conceptual at this point. The developer wanted to ensure that he got his entitlements before he jumped in and started the long-range planning that's fairly expensive. So you can see the concept would be 6 buildings around a central parking area. so no headlights or radios would be close to the neighbors. There's one main entrance, but at least 2 man gates in the fence for fire department access. This was approved by them. And also proposed is 20 to 25 feet of landscaping with decorative fencing at pocket.
Donna, you probably don't know, but conceptually, where would this community garden go? Do we have any idea yet?
Well, the dark kind of mottled is the open landscape and green area, so it would be in one of those
Gotcha.
areas.
I assumed that, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you. As far as general plan consistency, this project is consistent with several, well, probably more than several, but I use several for illustration purposes. So policy design 2.7 talks about safe sidewalks, which would occur within the projects as well as outside of it. Policy design 3.1, walkable neighborhoods. If you go onto Google Earth, from the project site to the nearest park is 154 feet. For those who like a little bit longer walk, you can walk to Dollar General in 0.4 miles. And those who don't want to walk, there's a dial-a-ride bus service to be able to get to amenities. Oops, I didn't want to do that yet. My mind moved on, but not my finger, or vice versa. So a policy design 3.2, attractive residential subdivisions. This is a market rate project that will provide attractive, healthy, and comfortable living environment for seniors. And policy design 5.2, health and safety subdivision development. For those who bicycle for their health, it's only 1.4 linear feet between, or 1.4 miles between the project site and target. It's not a bad walk or a bike ride. I have actually walked from Roselle to Oakdale Road along Crawford in an afternoon. Development plan is required with this type of a project, which is actually the architecture and site plan review. It will be processed and submitted for review and approval if these 2 approvals are obtained. I have seen kind of floating around out there a concept where the neighborhood thinks that this site might be better served with 10 lots and single-family residences rather than the 40 senior units that are proposed. But if you take into consideration SB 9, the state now allows 4 houses basically per lot. So if this project were divided into 10 lots, it could still conceivably have 40 units on it. So the applicant is requesting that the council review the materials and approve the project. The proposed project is exempt from additional CEQA analysis under the guidelines section 21159.21A through J, exemption for qualified housing projects. The Planning Commission at the regular meeting of April 19, 2022 voted 4-1 to deny staff's recommendation to approve the general plan amendment and rezone. Staff continues to recommend approval of the project for these reasons. 1, there would be eyes on the neighborhood during the day while others are working. 2, traffic generated by the project would be outside commute hours, where if the project were broken up into 10 single-family residences, their commute would be added to the commute time. 3, we have a critical need for senior housing. I need to mention also that I was approached by a planning commissioner who would change their vote to approval if that were possible. They regret their vote. I'd be happy to take any questions.
I have a question, Donna. Who's going to be managing the facility?
The applicant, who is here today, the property owner would be managing the site.
Okay.
So whoever's building it will be managing it.
All right, this is a public hearing. And I believe that there's many who would like to speak. And instead of breaking it down into 3-minute sections, you have chosen a spokesperson, Mr. John Keller, who will have the amount of time that he needs to convey the thoughts all of you have provided to him. If there are any items that are missed by Mr. Keller or misstated by Mr. Keller, I will allow you to come on up and correct it or fill in the blanks. So, Mr. Keller, if you will, your comments are part of the public hearing, and I now open this to a public hearing.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. My name is...
Before you start, for the city council, we do have provided to us his PowerPoint, which he is not going to show on the screen, but it's in your email and also a letter stated. So if you want to follow along with what he's saying, his PowerPoint is available to you through that email.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name is John Keller. I live at 3255 Pocket Avenue in Riverbank, the Sterling Ridge subdivision, just right across the street from the proposed project at 3318 Pocket Avenue. I've submitted a letter to the council, which I believe each of you should have received a copy already in addition to PowerPoint, which I was going to kind of use that as a background, but I was a little too late on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to kind of read aloud the letter and maybe just put some comments in between, if that's okay. Okay.
Your floor.
All right, thank you. As I said, my name is John Keller, and I've lived along with my wife and daughter in the Sterling Ridge subdivision for almost 17 years. I, along with several members of our neighborhood, oppose the proposed senior apartment complex at 3318 Pocket Avenue. The purpose of this letter is to address our top collective concerns regarding the project, along with further recommendations for use of this parcel. On March 11th, I started a Facebook group for individuals in opposition to the project, and on April 9th, we had our initial signing day for a petition addressed to the City Council against the proposal and have continued our efforts through today. The petition provides text from the public notice mailed out on April 4th to residents within 300 feet of the proposed site, as well as the purpose of the petition. The City Council should have a copy of the text along with the initial batch of signatures submitted to the Building and Planning Department on April 13th, as well as some additional petitions acquired through today. As of today, we have amassed 138 signatures, representing a total of 71 local households. And then I also have an attachment there for you to see a visual representation of the house, of the residents, and how many signatures per resident. Due to the fact that I, along with many of my fellow residents, work full-time jobs, and it's also, not to mention vacation season, it's been difficult at times to catch people at home in order to sign the petition. However, it should be noted that not one single individual that I have approached during our petition drive has been in favor of the senior apartment complex project, which is very telling with regards to the opposition. Now, I strongly agree that affordable senior housing is much needed in our city, as well as many other cities in the state. However, building a market-rate senior apartment complex at the Pocket Avenue location does not satisfy the affordability requirement. In my opinion, and the opinion of many other local residents, the approval of such a project would be a mistake that can set a bad precedent, which will not be beneficial to our small community nor to the city of Riverbank as a whole. The number one issue with the proposed project would be the actual general plan amendment, GPA, for the redesignation of land use from low density to higher density. In order to rezone the property from the current zoning of R1 to planned development, the GPA must first be approved by the City Council. Once the property is converted to HDR and subsequently rezoned to PD, the parcel will more than likely forever be designated as such, very rarely go backwards. This would be inconsistent, not uniform, with the land use of LDR and R1 zoning by all properties within 360 degrees of the site. And it would essentially create an island for HDR land usage in an already established neighborhood. If the complex is ever sold, there is no guarantee that the new owners will keep it age restricted or keep the same dwelling unit density. With the precedent set, It would also be much easier for a new developer to take on a different project that is suited for other types of HDR uses, such as subsidized low income and Section 8 housing. Another major flaw in the proposed project, is the increased traffic that will be generated as a result of the new apartment complex. Now, this was prior to, I wrote this prior to receiving the engineer's report, and I just want to just state something real, just quickly on this. You know, if you look at the numbers here, and we were saying it was kind of a concept about having a subdivision of 10 lots. That's just something that came out of my vision, just kind of real quick and just clump something together. It could be less than that, but let's say 10 single-family homes. In comparison, if you have, and these are just averages, and also these, let me also mention that these statistics have been taken from the 80s up to the 2000s. So you've got some numbers here from the 1980s where seniors were not working as long as they are now. So there could be some discrepancies in the numbers, but let's just take it at its face value. So if you have an average, out of 40 units, you have an average of daily trips of 130. If you put 10 single-family homes, if you do the math, it's about 94. So you're about 30% more. I'm sorry. Yeah, so based on the study, so 130 trips per day on the average for a 40-unit senior apartment complex. And then if you look at the daily on a detached single family, it's 9.43 per unit. So let's say, just hypothetically, there's 10 single-family homes, it's 94 trips per day. About 30% less than what a senior apartment complex would produce. So your traffic is actually less if you build single-family homes. And as, like I said, the 10 was just that kind of hypothetical thing, but basically our neighborhood, and I'll get more to it later, is in favor of development. But let's keep it uniform, just like we already have. You know, let's not do, I'll just go ahead and continue and we'll get to that point. Okay, sorry. Just had to throw that in there since this came today. Since there's no public transportation or walkable services in the area, additional traffic produced by working residents, caregivers, grocery medical deliveries, first responders, family visitors, recreational transportation, et cetera, will only contribute to an ongoing issue. Pocket Avenue over the past few years has become inundated with traffic, and there is an increasing problem with speeding vehicles on Pocket and adjacent streets. This has contributed to a great public safety issue, and by constructing a senior apartment complex in the area, it will largely affect not only the safety, but the welfare of the residents who currently live in our subdivision, including the new senior residents. By adding more traffic to the area, the streets also become more inconvenient to travel for local residents. According to Municipal City Code, under Plan Development PD Zone, Section 153.162, Master Plan Subdivision D, Paragraph 2, I quote, "The Planning Commission may recommend disapproval, rezone to PD of the master plan if it finds that any of the criteria have not been satisfied or that the master plan would be detrimental to the health, safety, convenience, or welfare to the public." The Planning Commission ultimately reached a decision on April 19th of a recommendation of denial for this project based on increased traffic that would result from its construction, which would fall in line with the code cited. Also, since Pocket Avenue is considered a local street in the subdivision, the following definition taken from Subdivision City Municipal Code Section 152.002 definitions must be under scrutiny as well. Quote, "Local street, a street that serves the local needs of a residential properties in a neighborhood and is so designed to serve not more than 50 dwelling units per between streets or a higher traffic classification. If you take the number of dwelling units between Holbrook Drive and Eisenhower Drive, the between streets on Pocket Avenue, there are currently a total of 17, which includes 3318 Pocket Avenue in its current state. Since the driveway of the proposed senior apartment complex is being served from Pocket Avenue between Holbrook Drive and Eisenhower Drive, the addition of 40 dwelling units would take the total number of dwelling units served to 56, which is above the maximum of 50 according to the definition of a local street. There's also the question of decrease in property values, which, based upon extensive research conducted by several independent agencies, is not conclusive for lower or higher values, but this is a gamble that I and my fellow neighbors are not willing to take. Looking at it from the perspective of a senior community, the developer is proposing a 55 and older complex. According to CFR Title 24, Subpart E, Housing for Older Persons Act of 1995, or HOPA, only 80% of the units require at least one person to be at least 55 years of age. The minimum requirement for a spouse is typically age 40 and children 18 or older. It can also be noted that the spouse and children age requirements are set by each community, so they're not, that's a requirement to set for each place by the owners. In the case of this proposed project, 32 of the units must have at least one person meeting the 55 plus requirement, but that leaves 8 units that would have no age requirement. Today, people are typically working longer, at least up to age 65, and since these are market rate housing units, not low income or subsidized, more than likely residents will still be working to afford the rent, as it would be difficult on fixed incomes. And since there are no public transportation nearby, it can be safely assumed that each primary resident will have at least one vehicle necessary to go to work, run errands, etc. And more than likely, a spouse and or child living in the residence would have vehicles as well. This gets back to the traffic issues resulting from such an influx of dwelling units. Just for an example, let's say that each unit had 3 residents. That could potentially be 120 vehicles, hypothetically. This location cannot support this amount of additional traffic. For residents on the older end of the spectrum, say over 65, the location does not agree with the typical geography when considering such housing for older residents. As mentioned previously, there are no walkable services and no public transportation nearby, so this should be a major concern. According to the website walkscore.com, 3318 Pocket Avenue has a walk score of 2 out of 100, thus labeled car dependent. And I also have a screenshot of the website there, so you can see that in your letter. For a fair comparison to another local authority, the following excerpt was taken from page 142 of the City of Turlock and Stanislaus Urban County Consortium Consolidated Plan Fiscal Year 2020 to 2025, dated April 10th, 2020. Quote, elderly, frail elderly. Many elderly persons aged 65 plus have a fixed income and or a disability. Affordable housing, including supportive housing, can help elderly residents. Because these residents often live alone and have limited mobility, smaller housing units located near public transportation, medical facilities, shopping, and other services are best suited for their needs, unquote. The desired requirement for access to services near such a housing development has been pointed out in several other independent and government publications, which makes sense when planning for such a community that is available for older residents. The site at 3318 Pocket Avenue has a sidewalk which ends to the west approximately 400 feet away at Holbrook Drive. And there are no crosswalks in the subdivision, including access to Harless Park. There's not a crosswalk to even get to the park, which is on the opposite side. So that right there kind of is a safety issue. And also, this reduces mobility for senior citizens who are not limited by physical constraints and would prefer walking for exercise and well-being. There have also been several conversations comparing this proposed project to the one in the Crossroads subdivision at the end of Prospector's Court, which is not a fair comparison. First, this project is substantially larger than the one built several years ago on Prospector's Court. Also, if you refer to attachment 2 in the letter, which kind of gives the zoning map of the general plan, it's basically, you'll notice that the LDR, land usage designation, is still intact for Prospector's Court. I'm not sure how that can be, but it's still LDR. There is no other example in the entire city of Riverbank that I could find that currently has an HDR land usage designation in the middle of an already established LDR subdivision. So the early argument of setting a bad precedent is valid. There is also the proposed Riverwalk project that would allocate 80% of 2,500 dwelling units to senior housing, resulting in a total of approximately 2,000 units. The Pocket Avenue complex would only consist of 4 units, which it was only 2% in size of the Riverwalk proposal. In addition, the new Crossroads West project will have senior housing available, although no specifics have been published, or at least I couldn't find the numbers. Based upon these other plans, the Pocket Avenue site would not contribute greatly to the senior housing inventory, definitely not the affordable senior housing inventory, and only upset an existing established neighborhood. I've also made suggestions to the developer as well as the Building and Planning Department regarding the concept of keeping consistent with the LDR land use and R1 zoning by subdividing the parcel and building new single-family homes, an idea supported by our community. And again, that was just one example out of many. It resulted in 10 lots, but I mean, I'm not a person that makes subdivisions, so it would be up to, and you can even probably make a subdivision with like an open space too, so you can have fewer homes, and there's different alternatives to that. So the 10 homes, I wouldn't say that's 100%. So, and you also have an example of it in your letter. Another option would be to divide the parcel into two and build 2 homes per newly created parcel, a total of 4, which would be in accordance with the new SB 9 legislation, as Donna mentioned earlier, effective January 1st of this year. Both examples would maintain zoning.
I was confused in the letter. Say that again.
So, yeah, about the SB 9? Yeah, so basically you could actually subdivide the parcel into 2, and then as a result you can build 2 homes per parcel, which would give you 4, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's
right.
I think that's correct.
Your home right there could have 4 units on it. That's SB9.
Okay.
So that's
Okay. Well, then maybe that's my misunderstanding.
Okay,
so.
that's fine. We're just,
Sure.
This is a conversation.
Yeah, sure. So in other words, you could right now, the way the parcel stands, you could put 4 homes on it. Is that what?
Your home, my home.
Okay.
According to SB9.
Okay.
And you do not have to concern yourself with parking, which is something that is against our neighborhoods. The way, if you see any neighborhoods, there are. I'm sorry, this is public.
No, that's okay. I'm interested to know what you have to say because, well, basically what I'm trying to say is that there are methods or ideas or concepts that we can use to keep it LDR and R1. I think the idea of taking it to an HDR is it's just going to set a bad precedent that I don't see anywhere else in the city, quite frankly. And then based on Mayor O'Brien's comments at the most recent State of the City address regarding the potential new industrial jobs coming to the city of Riverbank, having new single-family homes constructed would be very beneficial for new employees and their families, while also creating generational property that can be passed down to family members. As you all know, this is for rental property, so it's not somebody buying a property and be able to pass it down to their family, or or selling, buying and selling. So it's just a bunch of rental properties. Although there are several other points offering evidence for opposing the proposed senior apartment complex at 3318 Pocket Avenue, I've attempted to summarize the most important based upon my own views as well as feedback taken from my fellow neighbors. At the same time, I've attempted to offer alternative uses for the parcel in order to maintain our contiguous existing neighborhood. I'm asking that you take into consideration all the information presented when making a decision on the general plan amendment and the PD rezoning. And just one final thought, it really just comes down to this. I mean, it's just kind of it's almost like a common sense thing. I mean, it's, the city definitely needs, we need affordable housing, senior housing, whatever, you name it. But there's also a time and a place. And when the vision for this general plan came up and when Sterling Ridge came up, the vision was a single-family neighborhood. Now, I understand that the family that was there, the lady that was there, she wanted that 2 acres just for herself. And regrettably, she passed. But that the concept was there for a whole neighborhood. So disrupting that by just putting an apartment complex right in the middle of everything that really doesn't benefit the city because it's not affordable, and it's also it's more creates more traffic. It's there's just like I said, all the things in the letter. So just want you guys to think about that. And then if you were in my shoes, in my neighbor's shoes, and you lived in a place that that you call your home for 17 years, almost 17 years, and you plan on living there for a long time. I mean, wouldn't you stand up too? I mean, this is just something that it has to be done, but not in our neighborhood. So I want to thank you and for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone that wishes to add, not say the same thing, but add? Okay, if you, sir, come on up, add to it, do not repeat.
Understood. Judd Fraga, Lit Road. My property backs up against the proposed development, been there 16 years. First of all, can we just stop with the smoke and mirrors of senior complex when the age limit's 55? I'm going to be 55 in 3 months. You don't think of me when you think senior complex. And I would say that using a senior traffic pattern to say that this will have low impact is disingenuous at best. Secondly, I understand that they're talking about bringing a Costco to Riverbank, whatever, rumor, I don't know. But if there is one, it's going over in the Crossroads Center where there's infrastructure to support it, right? You wouldn't drop Costco at Santa Fe and 3rd because it doesn't fit. Shoehorning an apartment complex into this existing single-family neighborhood is no different. Thank you.
Please state your name.
My name is Ann Ditko, and I don't live in the Pocket Zone neighborhood, but I live over here on Riverside Drive, and I opposed the senior complex approximately 12 years ago that was going into Orange. And I was opposed to it not knowing what it was going to end up being. Now I'm okay with it, but that complex only has about 20 units, and that's plenty big. And the walking area around there sucks. I take a walk down there about once a week, and there's not a walking trail. It goes about maybe 100 feet, and then you have to turn around and go back, and nobody takes care of it. There's leaves all over the place. There's no garbage can. There's not even a place to sit. So I hope if you take into consideration something like this, you do a better job of what you proposed. So thank you.
Thank you. Next. All right. Are there any further public comments other than what we've just heard? Sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and fellow council members. Randy Brecky Real Estate. Also here representing the applicant, MK Capital Group, and yours truly, who is going to be joining my client as a principal in this project as well, which I've disclosed to everybody previously that I've spoken with. I appreciate being in front of you this evening. Obviously, our opinion about the suitability of this site for a senior project is considerably different than the opposition. And I personally have witnessed in the community where I live and other communities where this including witnessed it over on Prospect Drive, how this works quite beautifully within single-family residential areas. And so I'm frankly a little surprised about all the opposition, but I also respect it because especially if they don't know, if they haven't experienced it firsthand, maybe there's some ignorance on their behalf. But I do respect it. There's just a difference of opinion. With respect to these density issues, we're well aware of the fact that we could do something different here, especially under current law. And what's interesting about this, these same issues, walkability, traffic, et cetera, would be exactly the same, if not worse, if it were market rate, single-family housing that was adjusted to current density that's permitted by law. The same issues that happen with respect to lack of walkability, as people said, or any of the other issues, traffic or proximity to services, et cetera, all the negative things that have been said would apply to those people as well if the development application were different and it was on the basis of a single family detached, especially something adjusted for a higher density under current law. So I just bring that to the attention of everybody. In fact, for that reason, I think what we are proposing actually makes it more compatible because there's less impact on with parking, or with traffic in particular. And I also believe that there's considerably less interference with day-to-day lives. If you were to compare senior housing, you know, a project like ours with single-family detached, if you're talking about daily activities of families, including children, and just the normal activities, and the sounds and disruptions and everything else that it normally creates in a neighborhood, as opposed to a planned senior project. By the way, Vice Mayor, my company does a considerable amount of property management. We will be managing the property. Just to answer a question you asked earlier. And that's very important because also as a co-principal in this project, a vested interest in making sure not only is it developed and conceived correctly, so it has good marketability and good sustainability, but also it's managed in a way that is respectful of the residents and what we put into it in terms of ourselves, our equity, our design, everything else, and the neighborhood. We want to be good neighbors. You know, everything's been transparent. We subjected ourselves to do this vis-a-vis a planned development. And this application is an application to rezone from lower density to higher density and the PD. They're not or, it's and. And as I'm sure you know, a planned development gives Planning Commission, City Council the opportunity to do very critical review and impose upon us conditions of development. Were we to just come in with a development plan right now, seeking approval, given something that would match current zoning and then adjust for SB 9 or whatever, those same conditions of approval would be less, quite honestly, as opposed to what we would otherwise be subject to under a PD. So I'm a little bit surprised about it, but nevertheless, I just want to make sure we're accountable for that. This is a project that we think will work well in the community, and for that reason, we proposed it in this site. We didn't find another suitable site that met our criteria. Maybe Mr. Keller can find one, but that we're in the business, and this is the site that made sense to us. With respect to setting the precedent for land use change, again, I just reflect back on the comment I made about this being coupled with PD, and also we could do the same thing just coming through a different door and keep the same land use designation, albeit adjust for current state law. I don't even know how to respond to his comment about no guarantee in the future that this changes for either age restriction or somehow changing it to low income, et cetera. Again, the city controls this. By virtue of the PD, that's a zoning tool. And you have zoning enforcement through the life of that project. The only time that changes is if the project came due for change. So whoever owns this property, presumably us for a long period of time, we're subject to zoning enforcement under the approvals given to us under the PD, the conditions on the PD. So again, whatever they are, we're agreeable to live with those. We're gonna work with staff and come up with what's good for both parties, and we're obviously know that we're going to be subject to that. Do you have any questions of me this evening?
Not at this time. Sir, you mentioned seniors of 55. I didn't catch your name. John, I'm 35 for going on the third time, and I'm not senior yet. So I just want you to understand that. And thank you, Mr. Brecky.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments other than what have been made, additional? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. I'm going to make a couple of comments. John, you did a great job. I like your staff report. You have a job here if you want it. That is an excellent staff report. I don't have to agree with a lot of it or all of it, but I do want to tell you that was well presented. My concerns are you took some of my state of the city, but if you listened, it was for all affordabilities, not just low income, not for mid income, but for all incomes. And you want people to be able to progress. Single family homes are not single families any longer. They're multi-generational. Some of you have parents there with you or your grandparents with you and your kids who are now in their 20s. It's multi-generational. So it is not a single family. Once they turn 18, they're out on their own. They're not. So we have to live with the fact that all of this is a multi-generational And I'm sure that there will be people under 55, but for the most part, there will be 55. And if Mr. Brecky is true to his word, he'll keep it as much as possible for 55 and older. Most of these homes will be for those who are already established and have an income that can suit them comfortably in retirement. I believe that I might be looking for something like that here in at the end of my third 35 years. But, no, I'm not kidding. We have to take a look at the total concept of neighborhoods. Now that SB 9 is out there, we are in an area where there is no true planning for that. Someone comes up with a auxiliary dwelling unit, ADU, we have no choice but to accept it, making sure that it's there. They they have electricity, they have proper sewer, and we have to approve it. We also have other things from HCD, and I'm not criticizing HCD, but Housing and Community Development. They also have care homes throughout the city. Your neighbor could move out and say, hey, I want to have a care home. You have no say in it. We have no say in it. Only HCD does. And you could have people who were, and we have them here in Riverbank, that were in a mental incarceration in Tuolumne that are paid to be care home here in Riverbank next to your homes, not here, but throughout the city. So we have to take a look at the total concept on what housing is. Now, I'm going to let everybody else speak too, but you have to have 3 axioms to disapprove this. One, there is no shortage of housing or senior housing. Is that true or not? Okay. The other axiom is that there will be no disruption in any housing that you put there in your development. That's not true. There's a third axiom. I'm not going to go through all of those, but you have to take a look at how we, as a community, embrace those who are in need. Now, seniors with well-to-do shouldn't be in your neighborhood. Is that what we're saying? I don't think so. But you say, let's go to Riverwalk, and you have people here opposing Riverwalk. They say it's a floodplain, but yet I live on the floodplain. I have a 60-acre parcel, and I divided 15 acres out. Now it's no longer farmland. It's below the Williamson Act. So do we classify everything differently? You have to classify, embrace where we have to go as a community. Where do we have to go to support those that are in need and those who are looking for a place? And I know the imposition, and if it happened in my neighborhood, well, it happened in other neighborhoods that I have lived in. I have seen magnificent mansions right next to not so magnificent in other countries, other cities in the United States and elsewhere. So I'm going to listen to my colleagues, but I think that there's a lot that we have to embrace. And I'm not going for not in my backyard, nor am I saying that the Planning Commission had no guts or whatever was mentioned about them. They are very brave of what they do. They just did not have all the information, and they punted to us. And that's what it is, a punt. So anyone from the City Council wanted to do whatever they want.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm gonna definitely agree with a lot of the statements there. So we absolutely need affordable housing, right? But if you look at the data from the California Department of Aging, just in this county alone, we have 117,535 over the age of 60. 23% of that need low-income housing, right? So 77% need the other type of housing. So we need to add all types of housing to the housing stock to alleviate the market, right? To improve everything. Population projections from the state, senior populations are going to double by 2030. That's in 8 years, right? The baby boomer population, they're getting there. everything is adding to the stress in California across the, everything costs more here than it does across the nation, right? From energy, registration fees, everything just costs more. Land costs cost more, everything costs more. So we have to address this, because if we don't address the housing shortage, there's just going to be more homelessness, right? And that's just adding to the stress of what we're trying to do here. The SB 9 issue, right? So if we go with the single family unit, SB 9 takes over and turns it into the 40 units anyways without the parking requirements. So we get into that kind of situation. So I was actually one of the council members. Actually, I believe I'm probably speaking for the rest of the council. We were in opposition of SB 9 because it takes away that local control. We wanted to control that and have say in that. And so this is where we're at. And then the regional housing needs assessment is very clear that we have to provide very low, moderate, and above market rates, because it does help with the overall crisis that we're in. So, the deregulating the housing market is probably the solution, but that's at the state level. And so I'll let the other council members make a comment if they like.
So I want to take a closer look at our neighborhoods, because this is in my district and you're all my neighbors. I appreciate having the conversation and everything that you've spoken to me about, and I really want to emphasize that I took it all very seriously when we spoke. When you mentioned concerns about traffic, we were able to address that. We mentioned concerns about accessibility, and it's something that I spoke to city manager about including and looking to include finishing out, the lack of sidewalks that exist in that area. So that's pending. Then at the same time, we spoke about crime, which is not directly correlated to the housing, but I, wanted to emphasize that we have our chief here and want to eventually introduce you to our community resource officer that I've spoken to you about. So all of that being said, I want to emphasize that I am committed to increasing the accessibility to housing. And if anything, we mentioned this is market rate housing, but it is going to create more opportunities for people who need it in our communities. So I'm, again, very open to speaking more about all of this, and I appreciate all of you for showing up and for continuing this conversation.
Okay.
Michael.
So, yes, it's still broken, but it's on. Yes. Okay, but senior housing, as we have all heard, is very important in our community. I do know that in my district, Prospect Avenue for senior housing is a concept that works very well. And if you get a chance to ride by there, there is a section where it's like single studio homes and for seniors, but the whole concept, which is what they're planning for the Pocket Avenue Road area, is, like I said, it's working well, and it's right, with other homes, and it's working well there. And I just hope that with market rental rates as they are now, everybody knows that they're very high right now, that it is truly affordable for our seniors. And then you've heard about the RENA numbers, which is a concept that we can't control it. It's what the state tells us, that we have to have certain types of homes, the low density, the middle, and also the high. And so we can't control that. We do have to meet those numbers and try to do the best we can with meeting those numbers. And then I want to also let everyone know that transportation plans are in the works right now. And Roselle is being addressed as one of the underserved areas for transportation in the city. And the county is actually looking at what can be done to better serve that area of the city, so that they will have some type of transportation, better than none, which is what they have right now. And I think that's it. Thank you.
I'd just like to make a couple comments. First of all, I respect neighborhoods that have been there for a long time. I've been in a neighborhood for 36 years, and we've had a problem that was created in the year around 2000 when the school district decided to make the local school across the street into a charter school, and now we have a traffic problem that's just unbearable, that's very dangerous over there. we need to also keep that in mind, that neighborhoods are entitled to things. And this is kind of a hard thing to do for me, but at the same time, we also need to, with some of the stats you've heard, make housing for these people that are growing in numbers, as our council member Ruby said, it's going to double, the seniors. So we've got a lot of problems here, and I just want you to know that I'm considerate of your needs in the neighborhood, and I feel for it, but we're going to have to make a decision. It's not going to be perfect one way or the other. And I just wanted to let you know that we are considerate about your neighborhoods. Thank you.
And we build neighborhoods, and it's now all types of housing in each of the neighborhoods, especially as we look at Crossroads West. So all of those will be looked at exactly the way we're looking at this. So with that, are there any recommendations from the council?
So I'll make a motion to approve 10.1, the low density to high density, and the site plan development proposal.
I will second.
We have a motion to approve item 10.1, which is the Pocket Avenue Senior Apartment Complex for the proposed development of 30-unit senior apartment complex, and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe.
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campbell.
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 11.1, authorize the city manager to execute task order authorizing to the city council on-call utility engineer for preparation of an updated water master plan.
Michael Rydell, Public Works Director, will provide the staff report on this item.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. So this is kind of the last leg as far as SGMA is concerned, and the groundwater sustainability plan and other things that we need to do in order to keep the state from stepping in to our water system. So as you can see in the staff report, the last time this was done was in 2007. So we're now midway through 22. So we're just a tad bit behind the curve here. And this is also one of the things that was high on my list to make sure that I got done prior to me departing, I think. So this is one of the last things that I had on my to-do list. So looking at the aspect of this, there are a number of things that this will support. This will support, obviously, the urban water management plan. This will support SGMA and the groundwater sustainability plan. This will also support our public facility fees, and part of this process through the GSP, and updating the city's capital improvement program for our water system. And also part of this is a model for our water system that we don't currently have, which is a very important tool as you move into the future to be able to predict your water use and your water sustainability as you go down the road 10, 15, 20 years, I think. So it gives us the ability to predict the amount of water we'll need and the location we will need, meaning where we're going to spot a well or where we're going to spot some type of facility for the support of the potable water system, such as a peaking reservoir and things of those nature. So we're able to do this, and quite frankly, we got a very good price tag on this work through KSN, mainly because KSN is already very familiar with our system, our potable water system, and have all the background because they've been doing all of our required state reporting, because we're now, for the last 4 going on 5 years, we have to be able to show that we can serve, meaning we're not going to run out of water. And it's becoming a very big institution for the state when we get to this aspect of it. And it more and more becomes more complicated every year because there's more attached to it and what we predict off of our data, plus the data that we have to report. So this is going to be a very big tool in you guys' toolbox as you go into the future. So it is staff's recommendation that you authorize the city manager to execute the task order, so KSN can get to work on this particular aspect. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, if we don't approve this and we approve it next year, you're gonna stick around until then?
No, sir. No, sir.
I tried that, Mayor.
I'm all for this. I just have a question on water. We heard a, individual state that his water table has dropped 4 feet. And how's the city's water table?
Currently, first of all, a 4-foot drop in a water table in 2 years of drought isn't anything, right? I mean.
It is if you only have a 40-foot well.
It is, you're right, depending on where you're drawing at, type thing. But when we're looking at ours, the last time we sounded, depending on location, obviously all the wells we have on this side next to the river, you got a water source there, so we don't see any type of depreciation or lower in the water levels. I think the last time we sounded, we were still running within a foot or two of what we were running 10 years ago. So, and I think more than anything, that stretch from 2015 to present, because of us controlling the water more so, and as far as landscape irrigation and those kind of things now, and also looking at things that we're currently working on, like I have been kept pretty busy by the city manager going out for these turf removal, right? So we've had, that has been very receptive to a lot of residents in town, and we will probably very quickly run out of funding. However, I have heard through the grapevine that the state is talking about bringing up some money available for turf removal type thing. So I think this is going to be a very important thing for you guys to have, be able to continue on and to make sure that your water system stays up to par and is able to serve the residents.
Okay, thank you. Any questions before I give it to the public?
No.
Anyone from the public wishing to comment? Bring it back to the council for consideration.
I'll make a motion to approve item 11.1.
Second.
We have a motion to approve item 11.1 and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe?
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campbell?
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien?
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Item 11.2, designation of a voting delegate and alternate to attend the 2022 League of California Cities Annual Conference.
Mayor and Council, as you are aware, September 7th, all of the City Council and the Mayor, including myself as well, will be attending the annual League Conference in Long Beach. Part of that annual conference is a consideration of resolutions that are presented to all cities that would impact, whether it be on the revenue side, on transportation side, et cetera. So it does cover a variety of topics that are important as of that particular point in time that we are meeting. We have not yet received the resolutions for this year, but we would like to go ahead and assign the delegate that will be voting on those resolutions during the general meeting as part of that conference. We do have 3 council members and the mayor that will be available to attend that conference, as one of the council members will be taking an earlier flight and unable to attend. So that will be Councilmember Uribe, who would not be available. So I will leave it amongst you to be able to decide who would be the delegate as well as an alternate in the event that the delegate is not able to attend.
You were last year, were you not, darling?
I think Cal was, and I stepped in for the vote, so.
Yeah, I had trouble.
I was the year before.
Yeah, you were a year before that.
Okay.
What does it take a computer to say yes or no? Never mind. Okay, we have,
You can't get through to it, you don't get anything.
okay. All right, so I'm available to be either primary or alternate, and I have no objection sticking around on a Friday in Long Beach to manage that traffic on the way home in the evening.
I'm also available, but I'm going to be driving down
Okay, so, you want to flip for who's primary and who's alternate? I'm a primary. Any objections to that? Okay, is there any comments from the public on my new esteemed role? None, bring it back, for council consideration. You have to say it.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to provide item 11.2, mayor as the primary, vice mayor as the alternate.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve and a second that I will be the primary and the vice mayor the second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe?
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campbell?
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien?
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Item 12, comments. Staff comment, item 12.1.
So Mayor and Council, as mentioned by our Public Works Director, Michael Rydell, we currently do have our turf replacement program that is in effect. We do have limited funds and we have received quite a few applications that are currently going through the process, but we are still accepting applications. In the event some of those may fall through, then that provides opportunity for other residents to be able to move forward in that process. So for members of the public who are not familiar with that particular procedure, we do require that you have some sort of drawing or layout of the area that you're looking to replace, including photographs of your current turf, and then an application that's available online for you to submit. That then goes into a pre-inspection process that our Public Works Director has been performing, so thank you for that extra work, Michael. And then it goes into being able to allow the resident to proceed with the turf replacement. We do work on a reimbursement basis, so residents do then submit their receipts so that we can turn around and reimburse as quickly as possible. Second, thank you to Kathleen and Laura for working so diligently on the Santa Fe overlay project. The goal was to have this project completed before school opens. Some of you who may have driven by the project will see that it's still not paved. The paving will begin tomorrow. We know the school district is a little bit nervous, so they are working as quickly as possible to make sure that we have that open before school opens next week. Yes, next week. So they are working quickly. And of course, an invitation to all of our residents to please reserve and save the date for our final centennial events, which will be held on Saturday, August 20th. The Centennial Committee will be finalizing those details at our meeting tomorrow night. And then we will be sending information out to all of our residents to be able to attend. So we are looking at 2 different event times on that day. So we would have a morning event, which would include the unveiling of the mural that's currently being worked on across the street, as well as an evening event for those who are not able to attend in the morning. So more details to come. Please watch our website for that information, and we'll be sending out flyers to a lot of our commercial businesses so that we can try to advertise as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hernandez?
Yeah, so I don't know if there's any more District 2 people here, but I do want to thank the residents for coming out and again, having the conversations. And I want to remain committed to addressing some of the concerns that came up, regarding planning, regarding accessibility to public transit and the other concerns. I was invited by World Relief to speak to a summer camp hosted for refugees in our area, and they specifically wanted to hear about city council, so I was pretty surprised about that. So I was able to talk to them about what city council is and getting involved with their cities. So that was pretty exciting. And then I want to start bringing up Love Riverbank again. I am in the process of and want to invite anybody to invite to a committee, a board of directors of sorts, to be able to steer Love Riverbank to be successful in the 2023 year. So those conversations are forthcoming.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Uribe?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to keep my comment very brief. It's my daughter's birthday. So I will be attending the Stanislaus County Disaster Council and the OAC joint meeting this Thursday at 1 p.m. as the alternate in attendance. And then I'll be also taking a tour of the old cannery site, be meeting with the Aries site manager there, and I'll be joined by city staff. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
We had a meeting with our county care team that helps to provide services for the homeless, and we're planning an event here in Riverbank, and there's more details to come. And I want to thank you many, many times over to our community, our Riverbank Police Services, Central Valley Community Resources, and those that provide a donation of bikes for our Kids Health and Safety Annual Fair and Bike Rodeo. We received 21 bikes that we were able to give away to the community. There were many, many happy kids. They also received raffle gift bags from Central Valley Community Resources and water bottles and backpacks, and everybody was happy. It was a good day. And then also some city staff also helped too. And then I attended the meeting for the Riverbank community to learn about new and improved bus transportation in Riverbank. As I stated earlier, there's more information coming before the council, and they're going to be looking at the underserved areas here in Riverbank for bus transportation. That means that there will be more bus services, different days, different times increase, and so that all of the areas will hopefully will be able to get served. And then I listened to the County Board of Supervisors meeting today, and I was glad to hear that there was an approval of agreements for acquisition of properties for the North County Corridor Project. Glad that they're talking about that again. And then I think that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor?
I'd just like to remind everybody that we are in a drought and you need to conserve your water. And you also need to take care of any dry spots around your house because these fires just pop up everywhere. And I don't want to see somebody have a fire just because they're not doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the turnout this evening, both on the tiny homes and also on the Pocket Avenue. What I want to rephrase from some of our residents, not that they're scared of low income or Section 8. What was mentioned, I don't know if there was a perceived deterioration in the area, but we shouldn't be afraid of helping those who truly need it. We're not giving a handout, we're giving a hand up. Truly, we are. With the transitional housing, it's going to be associated with the Cambridge Academy and our Sierra House. And hopefully we'll get an update here for September of our Sierra House. Okay, and that would be a great project to go and everyone visit, have some type of ribbon cutting. I'd like to have Senator Eggman there. She was one that was very instrumental. And then some of the transitional housing that we're planning, hopefully we can get those projects moving a little bit faster than government allows. Ask for forgiveness. I want to just go back to our general plan. We've been trying to get a general plan technical review, which would be basically a new general plan, but that has just been put out as an RFP, or will be?
That will be. Okay,
shortly. And then it is going to address a lot of the concerns that we truly have, the water situation as well as housing. Would also address environmental concerns, environmental justice. And when we're doing this review and this environmental justice, I will hope that we can start capturing some of our plans that improves the quality but is not in the realm of checking the blocks as we go down, because the carbon capture technology, which we'll be employing, will be truly a huge benefit almost immediately in this area. But it is ignored by the EPA because that's not in their technical realm of review. So we're going to have to start convincing people that we're doing above and beyond the minimal amount, as we move forward. And again, I would like to have a discussion about providing Spanish interpretation or for all of our work that we do. If I'm not mistaken, the first law passed in 1848 was to establish Monterey as the capital, and the second law was anything written in English would be written in Spanish. So I don't believe they rescinded the second law, but they did the first. So with that, we have no other business. Our next meeting will be held on August 23rd, 2022 at 6 p.m. And this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you and good night.
What I was trying to tell you was that there was a spider. I watched that spider go from over there